They never heard the engine. They never saw the aircraft. There was no warning, no glint of metal in the moonlight, no shadow crossing the clouds. One moment the German night bomber crews believed the sky was theirs, and the next, explosions tore through the darkness. Entire squadrons vanished without ever knowing they had been detected. In the cold skies of World War II, a silent American and Allied technology was rewriting the rules of combat, proving to the world that wars would no longer be won by courage alone, but by intelligence, innovation, and technological superiority. This was the moment when air combat changed forever, and the United States stood at the center of that transformation. Before radar, air warfare was brutal, chaotic, and deeply personal. Pilots relied almost entirely on their eyes, instincts, and luck. At night or in bad weather, the sky became a place of terror and confusion, where aircraft disappeared into blackness and missions turned into blind gambles. Bombers could slip through defenses undetected, cities burned while defenders searched helplessly for enemies they could not see, and the concept of controlling the skies was little more than theory. But America, driven by necessity and ingenuity, was about to turn the invisible into an advantage. The story of radar does not begin with explosions or dogfights, but with scientists, engineers, and quiet rooms filled with humming equipment. Long before Pearl Harbor, American researchers understood that the future of warfare would depend on detection, not just destruction. Inspired by early experiments in radio waves, American and British scientists pushed the limits of physics, discovering that radio signals could bounce off objects in the sky and return with vital information. What started as a scientific curiosity quickly became a weapon that would define the modern battlefield. When the United States entered World War II, it brought with it an industrial and technological force unlike anything the world had ever seen. American factories did not just produce aircraft and weapons, they produced ideas at scale. Radar systems were refined, miniaturized, and rapidly deployed across continents and oceans. From the shores of Britain to the vast Pacific, American radar stations became the unseen guardians of the sky, watching silently as enemy aircraft moved unknowingly into danger. For German pilots, the experience was deeply unsettling. Luftwaffe crews, once confident in their ability to strike under cover of darkness, began encountering an enemy that seemed almost supernatural. Allied fighters appeared out of nowhere, intercepting bombers with terrifying precision. Missions that once felt routine turned into deadly traps. Survivors spoke of an invisible enemy that always knew where they were, no matter how carefully they planned their routes. They did not yet understand that the sky itself was watching them. American radar was not just a defensive tool, it became an instrument of dominance. Ground-based radar stations coordinated fighter interceptions with mathematical precision, guiding pilots directly toward enemy formations. Instead of endless patrols and blind searches, American and Allied pilots were placed exactly where they needed to be, conserving fuel, increasing kill rates, and dramatically reducing losses. This efficiency transformed air combat from a chaotic struggle into a controlled and calculated operation. One of the most revolutionary advances came with airborne radar. American engineers succeeded in placing radar systems directly inside aircraft, allowing pilots to detect enemies independently of ground control. Night fighters equipped with these systems became hunters in the dark, capable of tracking enemy bombers through clouds, rain, and total darkness. For the first time in history, night no longer provided safety. Darkness, once an ally, had become a liability. German and Japanese forces struggled to respond. While they developed their own radar systems, they faced shortages, industrial limitations, and internal conflicts that slowed progress. Meanwhile, American radar technology continued to evolve at an astonishing pace. New frequencies, improved resolution, and better integration with command systems gave the Allies a growing advantage that could not be easily reversed. This technological gap widened with each passing month of the war. In the Pacific, radar proved equally decisive. Vast ocean distances made visual detection nearly impossible, but American radar-equipped ships and aircraft turned the sea into a monitored battlefield. Japanese pilots, known for their skill and bravery, found themselves intercepted long before reaching their targets. Entire attacks were neutralized not by superior numbers, but by superior awareness. Radar gave American forces the ability to see the future of the battle minutes before it unfolded. Perhaps the most powerful aspect of radar was psychological. Enemy pilots began to feel hunted, watched, and exposed. Prisoners of war later described their disbelief when they learned how Allied forces tracked them. Many could not accept that technology, not chance, had guided American fighters directly to their position. This realization shattered morale and reinforced a terrifying truth. The Allies controlled not just the air, but the information within it. Radar also reshaped American military doctrine. Commanders learned to fight wars using data, coordination, and systems rather than isolated acts of heroism. This shift laid the foundation for modern air warfare, where dominance depends on networks, sensors, and real-time intelligence. The United States emerged from World War II not only victorious, but transformed into the world's leading technological military power. By the end of the war, radar was no longer a secret weapon. It was a symbol of American ingenuity and a warning to future adversaries. The nation that could see first would strike first, and the United States had proven it could do both. Radar systems developed during World War II became the ancestors of the technologies that now guide civilian aviation, weather forecasting, space exploration, and global defense networks. What began as an invisible line of radio waves became the backbone of modern civilization. Airports, satellites, air traffic control, and missile defense systems all trace their origins back to those wartime laboratories and factories. The radar that once terrified enemy pilots now protects millions of lives every day, silently watching the skies just as it did decades ago. The story of radar is not just a story of machines, but of a nation that understood the power of knowledge. America did not simply outfight its enemies, it outthought them. In the darkest hours of global conflict, when freedom itself seemed uncertain, American innovation illuminated the sky, turning science into salvation. Today, when aircraft cross continents safely and storms are tracked before they strike, we are living in the world that radar created. A world shaped by the belief that intelligence, cooperation, and technology can overcome even the greatest threats. The radar system that changed air combat forever did more than win a war. It changed how humanity understands the sky, and it stands as one of the greatest achievements in American military history. And somewhere, high above us, unseen and unheard, the legacy of that invention continues to watch, to protect, and to remind the world that when innovation meets purpose, history itself is rewritten.